The story begins with a plane struggling through a violent storm, where our main character, Linda, is returning from a business trip with her colleagues. Everything was going fine, when suddenly the plane started shaking violently, and in the very next moment, a powerful explosion rocked it. People who were standing without seatbelts were thrown badly in every direction, immediately after a section of the cabin burst open due pressure, and in the fierce gusts of wind, some people were blown straight outside. In the middle of this chaos, the manager grabbed Linda's leg tightly to save his own life. At the same time, a man moved toward the boss for help. But the boss brutally shoved him toward the outside, however. While falling, he grabbed the manager's leg, which completely threw off his balance, and both of them fell out of the plane together. Linda had not even recovered from this shock, when she suddenly felt darkness closing in from all around, and the plane was falling out of control, heading straight toward the ocean. Fortunately, the angle of impact was such that the plane did not immediately break apart, and her life was saved. But seeing the water rushing in rapidly, Linda quickly unfastened her seatbelt and swam her way out. Even after surviving, she got no relief, because she was now stranded in the middle of a desolate and seemingly endless ocean. Just then, she spotted a small island in the distance, and she began swimming toward it with all her strength. By morning, she somehow managed to reach that island, and for now her life was saved. But she had no idea that the real danger was about to begin. After walking a short distance, her eyes fell on a man lying on the shore. She ran toward him immediately, and upon getting closer, she realized it was none other than her boss, Bradley. He had also survived the accident and had drifted here unconscious, carried by the waves. Although his leg had broken during the fall, he was the only other survivor. But even so, Linda was not happy to see him, because he was the person she despised the most at the company. She was actually the most capable employee in the strategy department, and through her hard work, she had earned the old boss's trust and was about to be promoted to manager. But just before the joining, the old boss passed away and his son Bradley took over the company. The moment he became boss, he snatched Linda's promotion and gave that position to his sycophantic friend. Not only that, but he and his friends often started humiliating Linda. The thought crossed Linda's mind to just leave him there, but she thought if she helped him, she could become manager again, so she immediately picked up a sharp stone and began cutting banana leaves. Then, using a tree for support, she built a frame and tied leaves and branches together with vines to put up a small shelter. After making arrangements for shade, she thought of finding water. She dug a pit in the sand, placed coconut husks inside it, and laid leaves on top. In no time, rain began to fall, and she easily collected enough water to drink. As the rain stopped, the weather cleared up, and after quite some time, Bradley also regained consciousness. Linda immediately went to him and began giving him water to drink. When Bradley realized that Linda had saved his life, he hesitantly said thank you to her. After this, Linda showed off her skills in front of him by rubbing sticks together to start a fire, and soon she caught a fish and cooked it as well. But for Bradley, who was used to a life of luxury, this fish was no better than garbage. To fill his stomach, he was forced to swallow that fish without any salt or spices. But Linda had no problem with this food. In fact, she was actually quite happy despite being stranded in this place. There was no one here to put her down, and she could happily spend many days here. Slowly, a few days passed, and the effect of the environment was clearly visible on both of them. On one hand, Linda was happy even with the smallest of things. While Bradley wanted to get out of there somehow, he asked why she had not yet made an SOS signal on the shore, or made the fire bigger so that someone might notice the island. According to him, Linda should have done that first, but she had done none of that. On this very matter, he turned around in anger and started taunting her, shouting that she was just putting on an act of taking care of him. For no particular reason, he found himself entirely unable to assist because of the broken leg he possessed. Yet even after all of Linda's help over so many days, he was treating it as his right. Hearing his words, Linda understood that she could not win his heart through flattery alone. He would only understand her true worth when he felt some difficulty himself. Thinking this, Linda stood up without saying a word and walked away, leaving him alone at first. Bradley kept making taunts even at this act of hers, but shortly after he began to realize what a big mistake he had made. Even so, he remained arrogant and waited for Linda to come back on her own. But as he kept doing this, a full day passed and finally his arrogance began to crack. Even by night, Linda did not return. In the dead of night, a fierce storm started blowing, and within moments, the shelter that Linda had built was also blown away. The scorching sun the very next day made things even worse. Because of the extreme heat, Bradley fainted due to dehydration. When Linda had made him suffer enough, she came back with water the moment he saw her. Bradley started drinking water without thinking, and he could not assert his authority over her. He now understood that he was entirely dependent on Linda, but just then his eyes fell on the spear that Linda was planning to use to hunt a dangerous wild boar. He knew that the boar was extremely deadly, so he forbade Linda from going into the jungle. because if something happened to Linda, his own life would be in danger too. But Linda did not listen to a single word of his and walked straight into the jungle. As she was quietly tracking her prey, the wild boar suddenly charged at Linda and launched her into the air. The good thing was that a fallen tree suddenly came in front of the boar, which stopped it from attacking directly, and Linda got the chance to get up and run immediately. But just as the boar picked up her scent and chased after her, it only found her torn clothes along the way. Before the boar could figure out what was happening, Linda seized the moment and drove the spear deep into it. Driven mad with pain, the boar bent and broke the spear, and in its fury it charged at her again. Out of control in the midst of this danger, Linda immediately thrust a wooden stick forward. In the end, Linda brought it down. Seeing the boar's severed head, Bradley was completely shaken, and for the first time, he understood that Linda was actually very dangerous and powerful. Because of this, Bradley began to live in fear of. A few days later, when Linda was searching for supplies in the jungle, she found a waterfall from which clean water could be drunk directly. Now she no longer had to worry about water, and she felt quite relieved by this discovery. But this happiness of hers did not last long, because just then she heard the loud sound of an engine in the distance. The moment she heard it, Linda immediately ran in that direction. Reaching there, she spotted a boat, and seeing it, a new hope lit up in her eyes. But just as she was about to shout for help, she suddenly stopped. She realized that if she went back, she would have to live the same dull life all over again. She would have to bend and work under some other boss, and every day she would have to endure his thoughts. But if she stayed here, she would be her own master. She would not have to obey anyone, and she could do whatever she wished. Lost in these thoughts, she made her decision that she would not leave this island. So she immediately hid and slowly watched the boat disappear into the distance. After returning, she did not tell Bradley anything about this, but Bradley was only following her orders out of compulsion. In reality, he did not want to live on this island forever. 2 weeks of this wildlife had completely changed him, and his patience was now beginning to run out. He asked Linda to build a boat so that with its help, he could reach a nearby boat and someone could see them. But the moment Linda heard his suggestion, she flatly refused to build a boat, calling it extremely dangerous. Hearing this, Bradley's anger erupted. Because ever since they had been stranded on this island, Linda had not listened to a single word of his. Unable to hold himself back, he made the decision to separate from Linda, set up his own camp and build a boat himself. But as soon as he started working alone, he realized it was not as easy as he had thought. He did not even know the right way to start a fire, and because of his broken leg, he could not go very far either. Out of necessity, he began collecting rainwater and coconut shells. Somehow he managed to put up a small hut, and started waiting for help by writing help on the sand. Even after 2 days passed, there was no response from the sea. Troubled by hunger, he was forced to try eating the insects nearby. But the moment he ate them, he felt so disgusted that he immediately threw up. Meanwhile, Linda had all kinds of delicious food, which she was calmly and happily eating. Seeing his own condition, Bradley's arrogance completely broke. Ashamed, he got down on his knees without caring about his leg and began to apologize to her. Seeing this changed attitude of his, Linda laughed and she let him join her again. Even after feeling so humiliated, Bradley was helpless deep inside, so he quietly began waiting for the right opportunity. After nearly half a month passed, his condition began to improve. Then Linda took him to the highest peak of the island. Reaching it was difficult, but the view from up there was breathtaking. Linda explained that the real danger was hidden in this very beautiful-looking area. Then she plucked some berry-like fruits growing along the path, and explained that they contained a poison that numbs the body. After that, she rubbed the juice of those fruits on her arm, and within moments, red rashes appeared on her skin. Moving forward, Linda pointed toward rocks formed in an X shape, and explained that the entire area beyond it was filled with thorns and poisonous vines. That is why she gave a strict warning to never go there. Looking for anything hearing this, Bradley's mind came up with a cunning plan, and on the way back he made an excuse of being tired. Then he quietly sat down near the poisonous fruits. Just as he secretly plucked some of the poisonous berries, the ground suddenly gave way and Linda fell down below. In reality, that spot looked solid from the top, but it was completely hollow and weak on the inside. Bradley panicked and immediately started pulling her up. Even though he hated Linda, he could not watch her die like that. In the end, through his efforts, Linda's life was saved, and for the first time, she began to trust Bradley without saying a word. Just a few days later, a fierce storm hit the sea. Their shelter near the shore was completely destroyed in this storm, and the situation worsened further as trees began to fall. The good news was that they had already found a nearby cave. Both of them immediately ran and took shelter there. At that point, both were completely soaked, and to stay warm, they had to take off their clothes and sleep, pressed against each other. Through this closeness, Linda gradually began to develop feelings for Bradley. Soon, Bradley became familiar with every poisonous fruit found in the jungle. To show off his skills and to thank Linda, He decided to cook dinner himself that night. Linda agreed to his offer without thinking much, and gave him the chance so surprisingly. The food he prepared was actually quite tasty. But the moment Linda ate a little of the food, she suddenly started feeling dizzy and her vision began to blur. Within moments, she could not hold herself up and fell straight to the ground. But Bradley did not even turn to look at her, and immediately ran toward the jungle. A short while later, he returned dragging a wooden boat. In reality, he had already understood that Linda did not want to let him leave. So he had secretly prepared this boat, and at the right opportunity, he had fed her the poisonous fruit and made her unconscious. Now he happily started pushing that rough boat into the water, and without looking back, moved quickly toward the sea. But he had not gone very far when suddenly a huge wave smashed his boat to pieces. Very next moment, an even more gigantic wave rose up and pulled him straight down into the ocean. Fortunately, he had not gone very far, so upon regaining consciousness, Linda immediately dragged him to the shore and saved him. As soon as he came to his senses, Bradley frantically began apologizing to her, but Linda said nothing and quietly handed him a cooked crab. Bradley ate it without thinking twice, but within moments his mouth went numb in a strange way. Very soon this effect spread throughout his entire body. Then Linda revealed the truth, and he could not understand what was happening. That this was the venom of a blue-ringed octopus, which paralyzes the body within seconds, and a person cannot move no matter how hard they try. In reality, she had done all of this to teach Bradley a lesson. After this, she took out a knife. She heated it slightly and immediately pulled down Bradley's pants. She slowly came close to him and began showing him through gestures what she was about to do. Seeing this, Bradley was terrified. Just then, Linda suddenly swung the knife, and in the very next moment, a spurt of blood flew staining Bradley's neck red. Seeing this, Linda began to smile. Then she showed what she had actually cut. It was not a human body part at all, but a rat. She had done all of this only to frighten Bradley, so that he would never dare to pull such a stunt again. Her cleverness and the knife in her hand shattered all of Bradley's arrogance, and he began to obey her without any hesitation or questions. But Linda could not enjoy this control for long. One day while she was looking for supplies, the sound of an engine was heard again in the distance. This time, the person on the other side had also seen her. As the boat came closer, Linda saw that it was none other than Bradley's fiancée, Jenny. In reality, although the rescue team had given up, and she had been continuously searching for Bradley in the same area, Jenny had not lost hope, and now at last, her search was over. Linda forcibly smiled at seeing Jenny, as though she was overjoyed to see her. Then reluctantly, she informed Jenny that Bradley was alive. But Linda still did not want to leave this island, whereas Jenny now knew the truth that both of them were alive. Although this was known only to Jenny, and the guide who had come with her for this very reason made a dangerous decision in her mind. She lied that she knew a shortcut, and began leading both of them in that direction. A little while later, she brought them to the edge of a dangerous cliff, where she herself had nearly died. Then she made an excuse of tying her shoelaces, and told both of them to walk ahead. The moment Jenny stepped forward, the ground suddenly gave way and she began to fall straight down. In reality, this was all Linda's plan to kill both of them. But by chance, only Jenny had fallen and the guide was still alive. At that very moment, Linda became lost in her own thoughts about what she should and should not do. Sometime later, she returned to Bradley alone, and what had happened to the other two was about to be revealed. Soon after returning from the cliff, Linda was crumbling inside. She could not believe what she had done. Just then, Bradley came to her and asked her to go into the jungle to get food. But Linda flatly refused, making an excuse of not feeling well. Getting his opportunity, Bradley picked up the knife and without saying a word, walked off into the jungle. Upon entering the jungle, he decided to go hunting, and after chasing for a while, he spotted a small wild boar. He slowly moved closer to it, but in the very next moment his eyes suddenly fell on the ground. In reality, where the boar was digging in the dirt, a human hand was sticking out from beneath. Upon going closer for a look, Bradley was horrified, because that hand belonged to none other than his own fiancée. The ring on her hand was the very one he had put on her finger at the time of their engagement. As this truth came to light, Bradley's rage became uncontrollable and he ran rapidly toward Linda. The moment Linda saw him coming toward her, she was startled for a moment. Bradley held up the ring and asked, "Why did you do this?" The moment she saw the ring, Linda understood everything. To save herself, she said that it was all an accident. But Bradley did not believe a single word she said. Seeing the situation worsening, Linda slowly moved her hand toward her waist, but Bradley had already stolen that knife. Seeing this, Linda panicked and immediately started running toward the jungle. Bradley also chased after her. When Linda had no way left to escape, she quickly came up with a new plan. At that very moment, Bradley spotted her shadow behind a tree, but when he reached there, he found only her shoes that she had left behind with the laces gone, which made him feel something was off. Suddenly, Linda pounced on him from behind and tightened the laces around his neck, making it very difficult for Bradley to breathe. Bradley tried with all his strength to free himself, but Linda did not loosen her grip. In this struggle, the knife slipped from Bradley's hand and fell to the ground. Then, with one final burst of strength, he pulled Linda's hair and flipped her, throwing her to the ground. After that, he climbed on top of her and pressed her face into the mud. Trying to finish her off just then, getting her chance, picked up the knife. When Linda wiped the mud from her eyes and looked again, Bradley had already disappeared from there. In reality, he was heading toward that very poisonous area, which Linda had forbidden him from entering. Seeing this, Linda did not follow him and quietly turned back. Even after running quite far, nothing happened to Bradley, but the moment he looked ahead, he was stunned because it was between two massive rocks. He could see a grand villa, which made it clear that this was not a deserted island at all, but someone's private island. With a new ray of hope, Bradley immediately reached there, started shouting for help, but there was no response from inside. Just then he noticed that the door was open. The moment he stepped inside the house, Bradley quickly turned on the lights and began scanning every corner to find something useful. Just then his eyes fell on the fridge, and upon opening it, he saw all kinds of modern drinks neatly arranged inside. Parched with thirst, Bradley immediately grabbed a bottle of water and started drinking. But just then everything changed. Somehow Linda's voice echoed from the speaker. And hearing what she had to say, Bradley began to understand the full truth. He realized that everything about the poisonous area had been a lie, and that story had been made up only to keep him away from this place. Now Linda told him everything clearly and without any hesitation. In reality, the ship he had first seen was a supply ship that came here every month. And it was through that ship that she had found out about this grand villa. After coming here, she had secretly seen the door passcode and then at the right moment, taken full control of this place, though the real owner rarely came here, so she would clean everything and comfortably live here each time. Nobody would suspect anything, and everything was running perfectly according to her plan, but Jenny's unexpected arrival had ruined everything. Unknowingly, circumstances were such that she had to take the step of killing Jenny. Hearing this truth of hers, Bradley's hair stood on end. Even after fumbling around in the dark, could not find the control room. Just then the situation turned around completely, because Linda herself arrived there searching for him. In reality, she had already obtained a hunting rifle from inside the villa. The moment Bradley saw her, he immediately fell to his knees and began begging for his life. He said that he would not run away anymore, and that he would stay right there and spend his life with her. Not only that, he also said that during this time, he had truly fallen in love with her. To convince Linda, he began talking about the beautiful moments the two of them had shared. Hearing his words, something seemed off to Linda. Just then her eyes went to the bull's head kept behind, from which a scene was missing, and in the very next moment, Linda grabbed the golf stick placed nearby, whereas Bradley had also taken the gun in his hands. But the moment he pulled the trigger, the gun turned out to be empty. In reality, this was all Linda's carefully thought-out plan. In the very next moment, without wasting any time, she picked up the golf stick and began striking Bradley repeatedly. The final blow was so powerful that Bradley was finished right there. And with that, the story too came to an end. Linda cleaned the entire villa and presented herself as the sole survivor. Then she portrayed the entire incident as a survival miracle, made herself famous, and gradually became very wealthy. If you liked the video, please do subscribe to our channel and like the video.